direct cause of atmospheric circulation, heat exchange? What is the standard temperature at 10,000 feet, -5°C? Temperature at 10,000 feet, -5°C. What is the standard temperature at 20,000 feet, -25°C? 20,000 feet, -25°C. Standard temperature at sea level is 15°C. And for this, we're going to take our pressure altitude plus 20 times the outside air temperature minus the standard temp to give us our density altitude. So we have to subtract 2 degrees for every 1,000 feet all the way up to 12,000 feet. That's going to lead us to 24°C. So the temperature at 12,000 feet is -9°C, so 15 minus 24 equals -9°C. 12,000 plus 120 times 10°C minus -9°C gives us 14,280 feet, rounding down to 14,130 feet. And another one. So again, 2 degrees per 1,000 feet all the way up to 6,000 feet. And then we take our 15 degrees standard minus 12 degrees for our 30 degrees Fahrenheit equals 3°C. So 6,000 feet plus 120 minus 1.1 minus 3 equals 5,507. Rounding down to 5,500. 7,000 feet, the standard temp is going to be 1°C. So 15°C minus 14°C is 1°C. 7,000 plus 120 times 15°C minus 1 is 8,680. And the closest answer is going to round down to 8,500. What is the initial cause of wind? Pressure differences. What deflects air to the right in the northern hemisphere? Coriolis force. Coriolis force deflects air to the right in the northern hemisphere. What prevents air from flowing directly from high pressure areas to low pressure areas? Coriolis force. While flying across country in the northern hemisphere, you experience a continuous left crosswind, which is associated with a major wind system. This indicates that you are flying toward an area of generally unfavorable weather conditions. Which is true with respect to high or low pressure systems. High pressure area or a ridge is an area of descending air. So high pressure is an area of descending air, which is true regarding high or low pressure systems. Low pressure areas or troughs is an area of rising air. Low pressure area, rising air. When flying into low pressure area in the northern hemisphere, the wind direction and velocity will be coming from the left and increasing. So flying into a low pressure area, the wind's going to be going to the left and increasing. The general circulation of air associated with high pressure area in the northern hemisphere is outward, downward, and clockwise. High pressure area is outward, downward, and clockwise. Moisture is added to air by evaporation and sublimation. What is indicated if ice pellets are encountered at 8,000 feet? Freezing rain at higher altitudes. Ice pellets encountered during flight are normally evidence that freezing rain exists at higher altitudes. When conditionally unstable air with a high moisture content and very warm surface temperature is in the forecast, one can expect what type of weather? Strong updrafts and cumulonimbus clouds. Unstable air with a high moisture content and very warm surface temperature, strong updrafts, and cumulonimbus clouds. If clouds form as a result of very stable, moist air being forced to ascend a mountain slope, the clouds could be stratus type with little vertical development and little or no turbulence. So very stable, moist air being forced to ascend a mountaintop, stratus type clouds with little vertical development and little or no turbulence. What determines the structure or type of clouds which will form as a result of air being forced to ascend? The stability of the air before lifting occurs. Which would decrease the stability of an air mass? Moist, warm air. Decrease the stability of an air mass, moist, warm air. From which measurement of the atmosphere can stability be determined? The ambient lapse rate. Stability can be determined by the ambient lapse rate. What type of weather can one expect from moist, unstable air and very warm surface temperature? Strong updrafts and cumulonimbus clouds. Moist, unstable air with a warm surface temperature. Strong updrafts and cumulonimbus clouds. The conditions necessary for the formation of stratiform clouds are lifting action and stable moist air. The presence of standing lenticular altocumulus clouds is a good indication of very strong turbulence. Standing lenticular altocumulus clouds is an indication of very strong turbulence. The formation of either predominantly stratiform or predominantly cumuliform clouds is dependent upon the stability of the air being lifted. Which combination of weather-producing variables would likely result in cumuliform type clouds, good visibility, and showery rain? Unstable, moist air, and orographic lifting. Cumuliform type clouds with good visibility and showery rain, unstable air, moist air, and orographic lifting. A moist, unstable air mass is characterized by cumuliform clouds and showery precipitation. When an air mass is stable, which of the conditions is most likely to exist? Smoke, dust, haze, etc., concentrated at the lower levels, which result in poor visibility. Which is a characteristic of stable air? Restricted visibility. Which is true regarding a cold front conclusion? The air ahead of the warm front is warmer than the air behind the overtaking cold front. A cold front occlusion. The air ahead of the warm front is warmer than the air behind the overtaking cold front. Which are characteristics of cold air mass moving over a warm surface? Cumuliform clouds, turbulence, good visibility. So cold air mass moving over a warm surface, cumuliform clouds, turbulence, and good visibility. What is an important characteristic of wind shear? It can be present at any level and exist in both horizontal and vertical directions. If a temperature inversion is encountered immediately after takeoff or during an approach to landing, a potential hazard exists due to wind shear. So the winds are at 30 knots, the surface winds are calm, while on approach for landing under clear skies with convective turbulence. A few hours after sunrise, one should increase your approach airspeed slightly above normal to avoid stalling. When flying low over hilly terrain, ridges, or mountain ranges, the greatest potential danger from turbulent air is currents that will encounter on the downwind side when flying into the wind. During an approach, the most important and most easily recognized meaning of being alerted to possible wind shear is monitoring the power and vertical velocity required to maintain the proper glide path. So, being alerted of possible wind shear, monitor the power and vertical velocity required to maintain the proper glide path. During departure, under conditions of suspected low-level wind shear, a sudden decrease in headwind will cause a loss in airspeed equal to the decrease in wind velocity. Which situation will most likely result in freezing precipitation? Rain falling from the air which has a temperature of more than 0 degrees Celsius into air having a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius or less. So 0 degrees Celsius dropping down to 0 degrees Celsius or less. The most severe weather conditions such as destructive winds, heavy hail, and tornadoes are generally associated with squall lines. Destructive winds, heavy hail, and tornadoes are associated with squall lines. Of the following, which is accurate regarding turbulence associated with thunderstorms? Outside the clouds, sheer turbulence can be encountered 20 miles laterally from the storm. If airborne radar is indicating an extreme intense thunderstorm echo, the thunderstorm should be avoided by a distance of at least 20 miles. Which statement is true regarding squall lines? They are non-frontal and often contain severe steady-state thunderstorms. Squall lines are non-frontal and often contain severe steady-state thunderstorms. Which is true regarding squall lines? They offer the most intense weather hazard to aircraft. Squall lines offer the most intense weather hazards to aircraft. What visible signs indicate extreme turbulence in thunderstorms? Cumulonimbus clouds, very frequent lightning, and roll clouds. Extreme turbulence in thunderstorms, cumulonimbus clouds, very frequent lightning, and roll clouds. During the life cycle of a thunderstorm, which stage is characterized predominantly by downdrafts? The dissipating stage. What minimum distance should exist between intense radar echoes before any attempt is made to fly between these thunderstorms? 40 miles. 40 miles minimum distance between intense radar echoes before attempt to fly through thunderstorms. Which in-flight hazard is most commonly associated with warm fronts? Precipitation-induced fog. Most commonly associated with warm fronts, precipitation-induced fog. Which is true regarding the use of airborne weather avoidance radar for the recognition of certain weather conditions. The radar scope provides no assurance of avoiding instrument weather conditions. The radar scope provides no assurance of avoiding instrument weather conditions. A situation most conducive to the formation of advection fog is an air mass moving inland from the coastline during the winter. Advection fog is an air mass moving inland from the coastal line during the winter. Advection fog has drifted over a coastal airport during the day. What may tend to dissipate or lift this fog into low stratus clouds? Winds 15 knots or stronger. What may tend to dissipate or lift advection fog into low stratus clouds? Winds 15 knots or stronger. What lifts advection fog into low stratus clouds? Surface winds of approximately 15 knots or stronger. With respect to advection fog, which statement is true? It can appear suddenly day or night and is more persistent than radiation fog. Which feature is associated with the tropopause? Abrupt change in the temperature lapse rate. A common location of clear air turbulence is in an upper trough or on the polar side of a jet stream. Clear air turbulence is located in an upper trough on the polar side of a jet stream. The jet stream and associated clear air turbulence can sometimes be visually identified in a flight by long streaks of cirrus clouds. Jet stream identified by long streaks of cirrus clouds. During winter months in the middle latitudes, the jet stream shifts towards the south and speed increases. During winter months, in the middle latitudes, the jet stream shifts towards the south, and the speed increases. The strength and location of the jet stream is normally weaker and further north in the summer. The jet stream is weaker and farther north in the summer. The most current and route and destination weather information for an instrument flight should be obtained from the AFSS. Telephone Information Briefing Service, TIBS, provided by AFSS includes continuous recording of meteorological and or aeronautical information available by telephone. In the remarks section of an aviation of a METAR contains the following code information. What does it mean? We see FC and DZ, freezing drizzle, began at 42, so 42 minutes after the hour, and we see a wind shift and 30 after the hour due to a frontal passage. What is meant by the special METAR weather observant for KBOI? Rain and mist obstructing visibility. Rain began at 1812 Zulu. The station originating the following METAR observing has a field elevation of 3,500 feet in the cell. If the sky cover is one continuous layer, what is the thickness of the cloud layer? And the top of the reported is 8,000 feet in the cell. So for this, we're going to take our (3,500 feet in the cell), and the clouds are based at 4,000. Oh no, 3,500, and then the clouds are at 500 feet. So that equals our 4,000. So when we take the top of the clouds, which is 8,000, minus that 4,000, which gives us 4,000 feet. What wind conditions would you anticipate when squall lines are reported at your destination? Sudden increase in wind speed of at least 16 knots to a sustained speed of 22 knots or more for at least a minute. Squall lines reported at your destination would have sudden increase in wind speed of at least 16 knots to a sustained speed of 22 knots or more for at least 1 minute. What significant cloud coverage is reported at this pilot report? The top of the lower overcast is 2,500 feet, base and top of the second overcast layer is 4,500 and 9,000 feet, respectively. To best determine observed weather conditions between weather reporting stations, the pilot should refer to pilot reports. What is the meaning of the term PROV 402102 plus TSRA as used in a TAF? Between 2100 Zulu and 0200 Zulu, there's a 40% chance probability of thunderstorms with heavy rain. What does the contraction VRD in the TAF mean? The wind directions are variable. Which statement pertaining to the following TAF is true? Sky clear in the valid period indicates no significant weather and sky clear. The visibility in a TAF of P6SN implies the prevailing visibility is expected to be greater than 6 statute miles. What type of in-flight weather advisory is provided en route pilot with information regarding the possibility of moderate icing Moderate turbulence, winds of 30 knots or greater or more at the surface, and extensive mountain obscuration. AirMets and the CWA Center Weather Advisories, which forecast provides specific information concerning expected sky cover, cloud tops, visibility, weather, and obstruction to vision in a route format. The area forecast. Sky cover, cloud tops, visibility, weather, and obstructions is on the area forecast. SIGMETs are issued the warning of weather conditions which are hazardous to all aircraft. Dashed lines on a surface analysis chart, if depicted, indicate that the pressure gradient is weak. Dashed lines on the surface analysis chart indicate the weather is weak, the pressure gradient. If isobars on a surface analysis chart are spaced very close together, this indicates strong winds. Isobars very close together indicate strong winds.